My parents stood on my porch for the first time in 7 years, and my mother was holding a cream folder against her chest like it was a peace offering. It was not. My father stood half a step behind her, hands empty, shoulders bent, eyes fixed on the doormat. That was how he had always stood when something painful was happening in our family. Close enough to witness it, too far away to stop it. My mother, Maribel Hollis, looked exactly like the kind of woman who had practiced this moment in a mirror. Soft gray coat, pearl bracelet, hair pinned back neatly, face calm, voice ready. She had not seen my daughter since the day my daughter was born. Actually, that is not true. She had never seen her at all. Not in the hospital, not at her first birthday, not after her second surgery, not when she learned to walk with one hand pressed against the wall, not when she lost her first tooth, not when she drew birds on every blank page she could find and asked why one set of grandparents lived so far away that they never called. My mother looked past me into my house, toward the hallway where Liora's school backpack hung from a wooden hook, yellow and covered with tiny bird stickers. Then she looked back at me and said, "Veyra, we need to talk about Liora's future." Not, "I am sorry," not, "Can I meet my granddaughter?" Not, "I know I disappeared when you needed me." She said future because people like my mother love words that sound gentle while hiding sharp things underneath. I looked at the cream folder in her hands. I already knew there would be paper inside. Maribel Hollis never arrived anywhere without paper. Lists for church dinners, schedules for family holidays, budgets for other people's lives. 7 years earlier, when my daughter was 3 days old and fighting to breathe through tubes, my mother had sent me a letter explaining why another family might be better prepared to raise her. So when she arrived at my door with a folder, I did not wonder if it held an apology. I wondered how many numbers were inside. What my mother did not know was that I had kept paper too, not in a folder, not typed neatly. Mine lived in a yellow memory box under my bed, with faded corners and a crooked sticker Liora had placed on the lid when she was 4. Inside that box were hospital visitor logs, unopened birthday invitations, printed screenshots, voicemails, medical notes, and the letter where my mother tried to dress abandonment up as concern. 7 years of proof, 7 years of things they thought I would forget because time passed and the baby survived. My parents had come with a list of what they wanted from Liora's trust fund. I had kept a record of what they refused to give her before they knew her name had money attached to it. Before I tell you what was inside that yellow box, let me take you back to Hollow Creek, Idaho, the kind of town where every road seemed to lead either to the church, the hardware store, or someone's opinion about your life. Hollow Creek was small enough that people noticed when your curtains changed, and big enough for everyone to pretend they were not watching. My father, Orson Hollis, owned Hollis Supply, a hardware shop with dusty windows, a bell over the door, and rows of nails sorted in drawers older than I was. He could fix a broken hinge, sharpen a blade, rebuild a porch rail, and still not know what to say when his own daughter cried in the kitchen. My mother ran charity drives, church meals, school auctions, and every room she entered. She did not raise her voice often. She did not need to. Her disappointment could lower the temperature of a room faster than any shout. My younger brother Thayer was the bright one in their eyes, not bright like careful or kind, bright like a match. Everyone looked when he entered. He could forget homework, dent my father's truck, lose money from the register, and somehow turn the story into a joke by dinner. My mother called him spirited. My father called him a handful. I called him lucky, but only in my head. In our house, love was not loud. It was assigned. Thayer got comfort. I got responsibility. If the store receipts were wrong, I found the mistake. If my mother needed help setting up folding chairs in the church basement, I carried them. If Thayer missed curfew, I was told to be a good example. I learned early that being useful was the safest way to be noticed, not loved exactly, not held, just approved of for a little while. I left Hollow Creek at 19 with 2 suitcases, a used Honda, and a scholarship to a community health administration program in Bend, Oregon. Bend felt like breathing after years of holding my chest tight. The sky was wider. The air smelled like pine and cold river water. People wore hiking boots to grocery stores and talked about trails, the way people in Hollow Creek talked about church potlucks. I found work at a pediatric clinic doing front desk paperwork, then insurance forms, then billing disputes. I was good at it because I understood systems. I understood how a wrong code could become a $1,000 bill. I understood how tired parents sounded when they were trying to ask for help without falling apart. By 24, I was working as a medical billing advocate, helping families fight denied claims and confusing hospital charges. It was not glamorous work, but it mattered. I liked work that mattered. I met Brennan Vale at a community clinic fundraiser on a windy Saturday in April. He was trying to fix the projector while 3 doctors stood around offering advice they clearly did not understand. He had dark blonde hair that never stayed in place, a patient smile, and the calm hands of someone who did not panic when machines failed. He worked in software support for a regional health company, but on weekends he volunteered repairing old laptops for school programs and clinics. Our first conversation was not romantic. I asked if he needed an extension cord. He said he needed a miracle, but an extension cord was a respectable start. 10 minutes later, the projector worked. The doctors clapped like he had saved a life, and Brennan looked embarrassed enough to make me like him immediately. He was not rich. He did not dress like a man trying to become rich. He wore the same brown jacket for 3 winters and drove a Subaru with a cracked taillight he kept meaning to replace. Our dates were simple. Diner breakfasts, walks along the Deschutes River, cheap tacos eaten in the car while rain tapped the windshield. He made terrible pancakes and great coffee. He laughed quietly, not because he was shy, but because he never needed to fill every silence with himself. With Brennan, I did not feel inspected. I did not feel useful. I felt seen in a way that did not ask me to perform. The first time I brought him to Hollow Creek, my mother smiled with her church face and said, "He seems kind." Then later, while Brennan helped my father carry boxes into the store, she added, "Kindness is lovely, Veyra, but kindness does not build security." That was Maribel's first judgment of him. Soft words, hard meaning. My father liked Brennan in the quiet way he liked people, with nods and practical questions. Thayer liked him until he realized Brennan could not be easily impressed. My mother treated him politely, which in our family meant she had not yet decided how openly she disapproved. When Brennan proposed 2 years later, there was no dramatic restaurant scene, no ring hidden in dessert. We were in our small rental kitchen in Bend, surrounded by insurance forms I had brought home and wires from some device he was repairing. He took my hand and said, "I do not know how easy life will be, but I know I want to do the hard parts with you." That was Brennan, no shiny promises, just truth. I said yes before he finished asking. My parents attended the wedding, but my mother behaved like someone watching a weather report she did not like. She wore navy. She smiled for photos. She told guests Brennan was in technology, which was technically true and emotionally empty. My father shook Brennan's hand and said, "Take care of her." Brennan said, "I will, sir." My mother later told me the wedding was tasteful but small, which was her way of saying she expected less and still felt disappointed. I did not care. I had married the first person who made life feel less like a test I was always failing. When I found out I was pregnant, Brennan cried before I did. He sat on the bathroom floor, holding the test like it was made of glass. "A baby," he said, as if the word itself was too large to say normally. At first, my parents reacted the way I thought grandparents should. My father mailed a tiny wooden rocking horse he had made in the shop. My mother called twice in 1 week and asked about names, due dates, and nursery colors. She liked the idea of a grandchild when the grandchild was still an idea. Safe, clean, useful for family photos. At church, she told people, "Veyra is expecting." And I heard pride in her voice for the first time in years. I let myself believe we were moving towards something better. Then came the 20-week scan. The room was too quiet. That is the first thing I remember. The technician smiled less. She moved the wand again and again over the same spot, measuring, pausing, measuring again. A doctor came in, then another. They used calm voices, which made everything worse. Our daughter had a serious congenital heart condition. She would need specialized care. She would likely need surgery soon after birth. There were risks. There would be plans, specialists, numbers, probabilities. Brennan held my hand so tightly, my fingers went numb. I kept staring at the dark shape on the screen, at the tiny movement of a life that had already become my whole world. The doctor said, "We have a strong team." I nodded because if I opened my mouth, I would break. That night, I called my mother. I thought fear might make her gentle. For the first few minutes, she was quiet, then practical, then cold. "You need to think clearly, Veyra," she said. "A child with serious medical needs changes everything." I said, "She is our daughter." My mother sighed, the same sigh she used when Thayer spent money he did not have. "I know you feel that way now." That sentence split something inside me. Feel that way, as if motherhood was a mood, as if love was a fever that might pass if I waited long enough. Over the next month, her calls became less about support and more about alternatives. There are families trained for children like this. You and Brennan are young. You need to think about quality of life. You need to think about your future. She never said adoption at first. She circled it like a hawk. Brennan heard one of those calls from the hallway. After I hung up, he came into the kitchen, sat beside me, and placed both hands flat on the table. He was very calm, which meant he was very angry. "She is our daughter before she is anyone's diagnosis," he said. I wrote that sentence on a sticky note and kept it in my wallet for years. Our daughter. Not a problem. Not a warning. Not a tragedy for other people to discuss over coffee. Our daughter. Liora Wren Vale was born 6 weeks early on a Sunday morning while snow fell over Bend in soft, silent sheets. She weighed 4 pounds and 8 ounces. She had Brennan's mouth and my stubbornness, though no doctor wrote that in her chart. The NICU swallowed time. Days became feeding schedules, oxygen numbers, medication names, and the steady beep of machines that taught me how fear could become background noise. Brennan slept in a plastic chair beside her incubator with his jacket over his chest. I sat with one hand through the opening in the glass, my finger resting against Leora's foot, afraid to press too hard. Sable Ricks, Brennan's aunt, arrived on the second day with soup, clean socks, and the kind of face that said she had already decided she belonged wherever help was needed. Sable was a retired nurse. She washed her hands like a surgeon, learned every nurse's name, and called Liora Little Bird. Before any of us knew how much Liora would love birds, I called my parents on the day she was born. My father answered. I could hear the store bell in the background. I told him she was here. I told him she was small but fighting. I told him the doctors were watching her heart closely. There was a long silence. Then he said, "Your mother is resting. I will tell her." Resting. My daughter was in an incubator with wires taped to her chest, and my mother was resting. Later that night, Maribel sent a text. "We need time to process this." 5 words, no question, no promise, no send a photo. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. Brennan read it over my shoulder and said nothing. He just pulled another chair closer and sat beside me. On Leora's 3rd day, I asked the front desk for a copy of the visitor log because an insurance form needed dates. When the paper printed, I saw the names clearly. Brennan Vale, Sable Ricks, 2 nurses, a social worker. No Maribel Hollis, no Orson Hollis, no Thayer Hollis. I folded the paper and put it in my bag. I did not know I was starting a record. Not yet. I only knew that if something was written down, no one could later pretend it had happened differently. That night, in the hospital family room, I wrote on a yellow sticky note, "Day 3, they did not come." I stuck it to the visitor log and slid both into the side pocket of my bag. 2 weeks later, my mother's letter arrived. Cream paper, blue ink, careful lines. It began with concern and ended with a suggestion so cruelly polished that it took me 3 readings to let myself understand it. She wrote that some families were better prepared for long-term medical care. She wrote that love sometimes meant making the hardest choice. She wrote that Brennan was emotional and that I needed someone clear-headed to help me think about the baby's future. The baby, not Liora, not her granddaughter. The baby. Brennan read the letter once, folded it exactly along its original creases, and handed it back to me. His face was pale. "Put it somewhere safe, Auntie," he said. "Not because we need her cruelty, because one day she may pretend she was kind." That was when the yellow box began. At first, it was a shoebox from a pair of tiny yellow baby shoes Sable had bought from the hospital gift shop. I put the visitor log inside, then the sticky note, then my mother's letter. Not because I was planning revenge. I was too tired for revenge. I was living hour by hour, sometimes minute by minute. I kept the papers because hospital life trained me quickly. Keep everything, ask for copies, write down names, record dates. If you cannot prove it, someone will call it confusion later. The yellow box sat in the closet of our apartment while Liora had her first surgery, while Brennan and I took turns sleeping, while Sable made soup and told me to eat even when food tasted like paper. Liora survived the first surgery, then the second. She came home with medication schedules that covered half our refrigerator and emergency numbers taped beside the door. My parents did not visit. My father left one voicemail 3 months later. His voice sounded tired. "Your mother cannot handle hospitals," he said. "Give her time." I saved it. Thayer sent a message after I mailed photos from Leora's first month home. "Mom says you made your choice, so do not make everyone else live inside it." I read that sentence in the grocery store parking lot while Liora slept in her car seat and Brennan bought diapers inside. I did not cry. I had become very good at delaying tears until it was safe. I printed the message at work the next day and put it in the yellow box. Leora's first birthday came with a small cake, 6 guests, and a yellow paper crown Sable made because she said every child who survived that much deserved royalty. I mailed an invitation to Hollow Creek. I wrote a note inside. "She loves yellow birds and mashed peaches. She can sit by herself now. We would love for you to come." The envelope came back unopened with a postal sticker across the front. "Return to sender." I held it for a long time, then I put it in the box. Second birthday invitation, no response. Christmas photo, no response. Short video message showing Liora taking 3 wobbly steps between Brennan and me, unread. Every year, the yellow box grew slowly, not with dramatic things, with small absences, the kind that do not look violent to other people but still leave bruises in places no one sees. Sable became the grandmother Liora knew. She drove from Eugene every few weeks with casseroles, library books, and medical questions written on index cards. She knew which medicine tasted bitter and which blanket Liora wanted after appointments. She learned to draw crooked sparrows because Liora demanded birds on everything. On Leora's 3rd birthday, Sable made a cake shaped like a moon because Liora had started calling the scar on her chest her moon line. My mother sent nothing. My father sent nothing. Thayer posted photos online from a fishing trip with the caption, "Family Weekend." I saw it while sitting beside Leora's bed after a fever scare. I closed the app, looked at my daughter sleeping with one hand curled under her cheek, and understood something I had avoided saying out loud. My family had not lost us. They had chosen not to come. Brennan changed during those years too, not in a bad way, in a deeper way. Leora's medication schedule was complicated, and after one terrifying night when I almost gave a dose 40 minutes late because 3 different paper charts contradicted each other, Brennan built a simple tracking app on his laptop. It started as a color-coded schedule for us. Then he added emergency contacts, then oxygen notes, then appointment reminders, then a place to store insurance forms and care instructions. Another parent at the cardiology clinic saw it and asked if Brennan could share it. Then another. Then a nurse. Within 6 months, Brennan was spending nights improving a tool he had built because our daughter needed one more safe day. He called it brightness care because Liora loved birds, and because he said, Parents of sick children deserved a nest that held them too. Brightness did not become successful overnight. It grew slowly, like most real things. Brennan worked his day job, then coded after Liora fell asleep. I helped translate medical billing language into human language. We tested features with parents from the hospital support group. Sometimes the app broke, sometimes Brennan cursed softly at 2 a.m, then apologized to the laptop. Sometimes I found him asleep at the kitchen table with his hand still on the mouse. But parents kept using it. Clinics started asking about it. A small nonprofit gave Brennan a grant. Then a regional health network offered a pilot program. Brennan never talked about becoming rich. He talked about helping one parent sleep for 20 minutes without waking up, afraid they had missed something. When Liora was 5, Brennan died on a winter road outside Sisters, Oregon, driving back from a medical technology conference, where he had presented Brightness to a room full of people who finally understood what he had built. A truck crossed the center line on an icy curve. The police officer at my door had kind eyes, and for months after, I hated kind eyes because they reminded me of the worst sentence I'd ever heard. Sable was the one who came first. She arrived before midnight, still wearing slippers, her coat buttoned wrong. She held me on the kitchen floor while Liora slept in the next room, not knowing that the father who made bird pancakes on Sundays would never come home again. My parents did not come to the funeral. My mother sent a sympathy card with printed flowers on the front and no personal note inside, just her signature and my father's beneath it. Maribel and Orson, not Mom and Dad. Thayer sent nothing. I put the card in the yellow box because Brennan had been right. One day, they might pretend they were kind. The funeral was small and full of people who had actually known him. Parents from the clinic came, nurses came, software people came. Sable stood beside me with one hand on Leora's shoulder. Liora wore a yellow dress and asked if Daddy could still see birds from heaven. I told her yes, because I needed it to be true. Brennan had prepared better than I knew. There was life insurance. There were company shares. There was a will. There were instructions written in his plain, careful style. After the acquisition talk started months later, Etta Marlowe, the trust attorney Brennan had chosen before his death, explained everything to me in a quiet office overlooking the river. Most of what Brennan left connected to Brightnest would go into a protected trust for Leora's medical care, education, therapy, and future security. The Liora Wren Care Trust. I remember staring at the name on the document until the letters blurred. It was not wealth in the way people imagine wealth. It was Brennan's last act of fatherhood. It was medicine, school, therapy, safety, time. It was his hand reaching forward into a future he would not get to see. Brightness Care was acquired by a larger healthcare company when Liora was 6. The number was larger than anything I had ever held in my mind for my own life. Local business papers wrote about Brennan. A Ben magazine published a feature about patient-built technology. One article mentioned that the founder's daughter would continue to benefit through a protected care trust. It was a small line near the end. Most people probably skipped it. Hollow Creek did not. Hollow Creek could miss a hospital, a funeral, 5 birthdays, and 2 surgeries, but it could find that one line in an afternoon. The first sign was Thayer viewing my professional profile 3 times in 1 week. Then a woman who used to keep books for my father's store messaged me, kindly but carefully. "Your mother mentioned Liora at church today," she wrote. "First time I've heard her say the name, I thought you should know." I read that message twice. My mother had not said Leora's name when she was born, not when she was in surgery, not when Brennan died, but after the acquisition article she said it in church. A week later, Maribel liked a public post from Leora's school art show, a post from almost a year earlier. The photo showed Liora holding a drawing of a yellow warbler. My mother did not comment. She only liked it, as if one small click could step over 7 years of silence. Then came the text. "Veyra, your father and I have been thinking about Liora. Family should not stay apart forever." I sat at my desk and looked at those words for a long time. Family should not stay apart forever. No apology, no mention of the letter, No mention of the returned invitations. No mention of Brennan's funeral. Just a soft sentence with no weight behind it. I did not reply. 2 days later, Thayer texted, "Mom is trying. Do not punish everyone because the past was hard." The past was hard. That was how people like my brother cleaned blood off a story. They called it hard and hoped no one asked who held the knife. I printed both messages and placed them in the yellow box. By then, the shoebox had become a real memory box from a craft store, painted pale yellow with a crooked bird sticker Liora had added on the lid. She thought it held baby things. In a way, it did. Her hospital bracelet, her first birthday invitation, the little card from the flower arrangement Sable brought after surgery, but it also held the history my family wanted time to soften. Time does not soften paper. It only makes the ink look more honest. The proof came from a place I did not expect. A woman named Della Voss, who had known me in high school and still lived near Hollow Creek, sent me a screenshot with no greeting. Then she called before I could answer. Her voice shook. "Veyra, I think Thayer added me to a group chat by mistake. There is another Della in his contacts. I was in it for a day before they removed me. I took screenshots because it felt wrong." I sat down slowly at my kitchen table. Liora was in the living room drawing birds. Sable was washing dishes. Outside, rain moved down the windows in thin silver lines. "Send them," I said. There were 6 screenshots. I read them once, then again. Thayer wrote, "The trust is real." I looked up the acquisition. It could be 7 figures, maybe more over time. My mother replied, "We should not ask directly. We should frame it around family healing and Leora's connection to her roots." My father wrote, "She has not spoken to us in years. Maybe money should not be the first conversation." For a moment, I felt something almost like hope. Then my mother answered, "Money is not the first conversation. It is part of the repair." Thayer added, "If Veyra controls the trust, she can approve family-related expenses. We need a clear list before we go." A clear list before we go. I looked up from the phone. Liora held up her drawing from the living room. "Mom, is this bird too yellow?" she asked. Her hair was falling out of its braid. Her cheeks were flushed from concentration. 7 years old, alive, curious, loved. She had no idea that people who had refused to visit her in the hospital were now planning how to approach the money her dead father had left to protect her. I smiled because mothers learn to smile with broken things inside them. "No, little bird," I said. "It is exactly yellow enough." That night, after Liora was asleep, I opened the yellow box. I placed the group chat screenshots beside the hospital visitor log from Leora's 3rd day of life. The papers looked ordinary next to each other. White sheets, black ink, dates in the corners. But together, they told the whole truth. One paper proved they had not come when she was fighting to live. The other proved they were coming now that her name had money attached to it. For a few minutes, I just sat on the floor beside my bed and stared at the open yellow box. The house was quiet in that soft, heavy way a house becomes quiet after a child falls asleep. Leora's nightlight glowed under her door. The dishwasher hummed in the kitchen. Rain tapped lightly against the bedroom window. Everything looked normal, but inside that yellow box, the truth had changed shape. For 7 years, the box had held absence. It held proof of who did not come, who did not call, who did not ask, who did not care enough to learn the name of the doctor who opened my daughter's chest and helped her keep living. But now the box held something new. It held proof that the silence had not ended because love had returned. It had ended because someone had done the math. I did not sleep much that night. I kept thinking about Brennan, not in the sharp, early way I thought of him after he died, when grief felt like a room with no doors. This was different. I thought of him at the kitchen table with his laptop open, building Bright Nest while Liora slept in the next room. I thought of his voice when he said, "She is our daughter," before she is anyone's diagnosis. I thought of his hands folding my mother's adoption letter and telling me to keep it safe, because one day she might pretend she had been kind. He had known. Not the details, not the trust fund, not the cream folder that would come later, but he had understood something about people who choose image over love. They do not only hurt you once, they hurt you again when they rewrite the story. The next morning, I called Etta Marlowe. Etta was not the kind of attorney who wasted words. She was in her late 30s, sharp-eyed, calm, and usually dressed like she had made peace with being the most prepared person in any room. She had helped Brennan set up the structure before he died, then helped me understand it after I became too numb to understand anything. When she answered, I said, "My family knows about the trust." There was 1 second of silence. Then she said, "How much do they know?" I told her about the article, the messages, the group chat screenshots, and my mother's line about money being part of the repair. Etta did not interrupt. When I finished, she said, "They have no right to Leora's trust. Not morally, not legally, not creatively if they try to dress it up as family reconciliation." I laughed once, but it did not feel like laughter. It felt like air escaping. Etta continued, "You are trustee, but that does not mean the money is yours to distribute however you want. The trust has a purpose: medical needs, education, therapy, long-term care, future support connected to Leora's well-being. It does not pay for your brother's business. It does not pay for your parents' house. It does not pay guilt invoices." I wrote that down on a notepad, even though I already knew it. Sometimes a person needs to see the boundary in ink. Then Etta said something that stayed with me. "That money has one job, Veyra, to protect your daughter from a world that may not always be gentle." After we hung up, I tore that page from the notepad and put it in the yellow box too. 2 days later, Thayer came to Bend. He said it was for a supplier meeting connected to his outdoor gear shop, a business that had been failing in slow motion for years because Thayer loved announcing ideas more than finishing them. He texted like nothing was strange. "Hey, I'm in town Thursday. Lunch?" 7 years of silence, then lunch. I could have ignored him. Part of me wanted to, but another part of me wanted to know what he would ask when he thought. I did not know what he was really doing, so I agreed to meet him at a cafe near Drake Park. Public. Bright. 45 minutes. I told Sable where I would be. She only nodded and said, "Do not let charm wear a costume and call itself change." Thayer arrived 10 minutes late, smiling like we were old friends who had simply misplaced each other. He looked expensive in a way that did not quite fit him. New jacket, clean boots, sunglasses hanging from his shirt collar, even though it was cloudy. He hugged me before I could decide if I wanted that, then leaned back and said, "You look good, Vey." Nobody in my family had called me Vey since I was a teenager. It felt like someone using an old key on a door I had already changed the lock on. We ordered coffee. He asked how Ben was, how work was, how Liora was doing. For almost 3 minutes, he sounded like a brother. Then the questions started to sharpen. Did Liora still need specialists? Did insurance cover everything? Was the trust controlled by me or by a financial company? Did Brennan's app really sell for as much as people were saying? Was the house mine or rented? Did Liora go to private therapy? Did Sable still help out? Were there limits on what the trust could pay for? Was there extra after medical costs? Extra. That was the word that made my stomach go cold. Extra money in a trust created because my husband died and my child had spent her first years inside hospitals. I counted 27 questions before his coffee was finished. Not one of them was, "How is Leora's heart?" Not one of them was, "What does she love?" Not one was, "Does she remember her father?" After lunch, Thayer walked me to my car. He looked around the street as if trying to memorize it. I watched his eyes move over my car, the building across the road, the direction I had come from. He hugged me again, too fast and too friendly. I drove 3 blocks, parked behind a bookstore, and waited. 10 minutes later, I saw him from a distance, standing near the corner with his phone raised. He was taking a photo of my house from the sidewalk, not knocking, not leaving a note, just photographing, scouting, reporting. I sat in my car and felt something inside me become very still. That evening, I wrote everything down. 27 questions, no apology, no medical concern. Photographed residence, possible report to Maribel. I did not put it in a binder. I wrote it on 2 sheets of paper and placed them in the yellow box beside the screenshots. The box was getting heavy. Not physically, though it was heavier than it looked. It was heavy with the kind of truth people spend years avoiding. A week later, Liora found an old photo while I was sorting a drawer in the hallway. It was from my wedding day. Brennan and me standing outside the courthouse in Bend, laughing because the wind had nearly stolen my veil. My parents were in the background, stiff and formal, before everything broke completely. Liora picked it up and studied the faces. "Are these the grandparents who live far away?" she asked. I froze for half a second. Parents think we will be ready for questions because we know they will come, but knowing is not the same as being ready. I sat beside her on the hallway floor. "Yes," I said. "Those are my parents." She touched my mother's face in the photo with one finger. "Do they know I can ride my bike now?" That question went through me so cleanly it left no room for anger, only grief. Liora had worked for months to ride that bike. Balance had not come easily to her. Her legs tired faster than other children's. She fell more. She got frustrated. But one Saturday morning, with Sable clapping from the driveway and me running beside her with one hand near the seat, she rode 6 whole houses down without stopping. Brennan should have seen it. My parents could have known about it. They could have received videos, calls, drawings, stories. Instead, my daughter had to ask if they knew. I brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek and said, "They do not know much about us yet." Liora thought about that. Then she said, "Maybe they are shy." I smiled because she was 7 and still generous enough to imagine shyness where adults had chosen cruelty. "Maybe," I said. But later, after she went to bed, I sat in the kitchen with that old wedding photo in front of me and let myself cry. Not for my mother, not for Thayer, not even for the child I used to be in Hollow Creek, carrying folding chairs and hoping usefulness would become love. I cried for Liora, who had built an innocent explanation for people who had never earned it. My parents arrived on a Thursday at 11:26 in the morning. I know the exact time because I had been looking out the window since 11. A rideshare stopped in front of my house. My mother stepped out first, cream coat buttoned neatly, scarf arranged with care, pearl bracelet catching the weak sunlight. My father climbed out behind her slowly, older than he had looked in the photos I had seen online. His hair was thinner, his face had softened around the edges, but his silence was the same. Maribel held the cream folder in her left hand. Orson held nothing. I opened the door before they rang the bell. For a moment, no one spoke. My mother's eyes moved over my face like she was searching for the daughter she remembered, the one who might still want approval enough to accept less than an apology. "Veyra," she said softly. My father whispered my name, and his voice cracked on the second syllable. I stepped back. "Come in." I did not hug them. I did not offer coffee. Coffee is for guests. They were not guests yet. They were people who had arrived at my daughter's home with a folder. I led them to the dining table, not the living room. The dining room was honest. It had Brennan's photo on the wall, Leora's bird drawings clipped to a string, Sable's handmade quilt folded over the back of a chair because Liora liked to wrap herself in it while reading. On the sideboard sat a framed copy of Leora's first hospital bracelet beside a small wooden bird Brennan had carved badly and proudly during her second recovery. My mother noticed everything. I watched her eyes pause on Brennan's photo, then move quickly away. My father stared at the bird drawings for too long. I poured 3 glasses of water and sat across from them. My mother placed the cream folder on the table and rested both hands on top of it. "We are not here to take," she began. That was the first sentence, and already it was a lie. "We are here to restore balance." I said nothing. She opened the folder and removed one sheet of paper. Her handwriting was still beautiful, perfect spacing, clean bullets, numbers aligned along the right side. She had always known how to make a demand look respectable. She read the list aloud in a voice that belonged in a committee meeting. $160,000 for Thayer's outdoor business, described as a family legacy investment. $90,000 to pay the remaining balance on the Hollow Creek house so Liora would always have roots. $42,000 for my father's medical and dental work. $75,000 for home repairs and property taxes. $50,000 for travel and family reconciliation so Liora could know where she came from. Then monthly family support of $2,500 because, as my mother said, family wealth should not sit unused while family members struggle. The total first-year request was $447,000. I looked at the paper, then at my mother. Family wealth, I repeated. She folded her hands. Liora is part of this family. We are not strangers. The trust can help bring everyone together. My father looked down at the table. He had not spoken since he entered. My mother continued, softer now. Your daughter deserves grandparents. She deserves a connection to her roots. We made mistakes, yes, but holding the past over everyone's head will not heal anything. There it was. The past, not abandonment, not absence, not the letter, not the hospital. The past, as if it were whether we had all survived equally. I stood up. My mother's eyes followed me. Where are you going? She asked. To get what I brought. I walked to my bedroom. The yellow box was under the bed, where it had been for years. I pulled it out with both hands. For a moment, I sat on the edge of the mattress and placed my palm on the crooked bird sticker. I thought of Brennan. I thought of Leora's question. Do they know I can ride my bike now? Then I carried the box to the dining room and set it on the table beside my mother's cream folder. Maribel stared at it. What is that? I sat down. You brought a plan for Leora's money. I brought the record of what you gave Liora before you knew she had any. My father closed his eyes. My mother's mouth tightened. Veyra, I do not think this is helpful. You will, I said. I opened the box. The first paper was the hospital visitor log from Leora's third day of life. I placed it between us and turned it so my mother could read it. Day 3, I said. Liora was in the NICU. Her chest was taped. She had tubes in her nose. Brennan had not slept in 2 days. Sable had driven through snow to be there. These are the names of the people who visited. I tapped the page once. You are not on it. Dad is not on it. Thayer is not on it. My mother inhaled sharply. We were scared. I looked at her. So was she. I took out the second paper. Cream stationery. Blue ink. My mother recognized it before I read a word. Her face changed, not with guilt exactly, but with the shock of seeing her own voice return from a place she thought time had buried. This is the letter you sent 2 weeks after Liora was born, I said. The one where you wrote that some families were better prepared for long-term medical care. The one where you said Brennan was emotional. The one where you suggested I think about whether keeping my daughter was fair to anyone. My father looked up at my mother. I realized then he had either never read the letter or had convinced himself it said something softer. Maribel's cheeks colored. I was thinking of your future. No, I said. You were thinking of how my future looked to other people. The next item was Leora's first birthday invitation, still in its envelope, returned unopened. I placed it on the table carefully. She had just learned to sit without support. I wrote that she loved yellow birds and mashed peaches. Nobody read it. Another invitation, another card, a photo from her second birthday, a printed delivery confirmation for a video message that had never been opened. My mother's eyes grew wet, but I did not stop. Tears were not the same as accountability. I had learned that from her. Then I pulled out the voicemail transcript from the night before Leora's second surgery. My father's message. Your mother cannot handle hospitals. Give her time. I read it aloud. Orson's face crumpled before I finished. I remember that, he whispered. So do I said. Liora had to handle hospitals before she could say her own name, but Mom could not handle visiting one. My mother flinched as if I had slapped her. I had not. I had only returned her sentence to the room. I placed Thayer's message on the table next. Mom says you made your choice, so do not make everyone else live inside it. My mother reached for it, but I moved it out of her hand. No, you can look, but you do not get to take anything from this box. Her hand froze. I read the message aloud. Then I said, my choice was my daughter. I would make it again. I would make it every day in every hospital room, with every bill, with every fear, with every lonely birthday. I would choose her again. My father was crying quietly now, not loudly, not for effect. Tears ran down his face and dropped onto his shirt. My mother ignored him. She had moved into that hard stillness I knew from childhood, the one that meant she was waiting for a weakness to appear. I did not give her one. I reached into the box and took out one of Leora's drawings. It was from kindergarten, a family tree drawn in crayon. At the bottom were me, Brennan with a halo because he was already gone, Sable with big purple glasses, and Liora in a yellow dress. On one side, she had drawn an empty branch and labeled it Grandma Far Away. The letters were uneven. The tree was too small for the page. I placed it in front of my father. He covered his mouth with one hand. She drew this when she was 5, I said. She asked if grandmothers could be far away forever. I told her some people live far away in ways maps cannot explain. My mother finally spoke. You kept all of this to punish us. Her voice had lost its softness. There she was, the real Maribel beneath the scarf and careful lipstick. No, I said. I kept it because people like you count on everyone else losing the paperwork. Her eyes flashed. People like me? People who hurt others and then call it a difficult season. I took out the funeral card next. The printed flowers, the blank inside, Maribel and Orson written at the bottom. I placed it beside the trust request list. Brennan died when Liora was 5. You did not come to the funeral. You sent this. No note, no memory, no phone call. Today you came to discuss the money he left to protect his daughter. The room went so quiet I could hear the refrigerator motor. My father whispered, I wanted to come. I looked at him. But you did not. He nodded like the words had weight, and he had finally stopped trying to set them down. Then I took out the group chat screenshots. My mother's expression changed before I read them. She knew. Thayer's words first. The trust is real. Then hers. We should frame it around family healing and Leora's connection to her roots. Then my father's weak protest, then her answer. Money is not the first conversation. It is part of the repair. I read every word slowly, not dramatically, not loudly, like I was reading medical instructions, because in a way, I was. Instructions for how to treat an infection that had been ignored too long. When I finished, Maribel's face was pale with anger. You had no right to read private family messages. I almost laughed, but it would have sounded cruel, and I did not want cruelty in my daughter's dining room. You had no right to plan around my daughter's trust before learning the name of her cardiologist. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time since she entered, she had no polished answer ready. But silence never lasted long with Maribel. We raised you, she said. We fed you, we clothed you, we gave you a home. You act as if we were monsters. You were parents, I said. Food and clothes were not alone. Her eyes narrowed. You always wanted to make me the villain. No, I said. For years, I wanted to make you a grandmother. That landed. I saw it hit her face, and for one breath something moved behind her anger. Shame, maybe. Fear. Grief. Then she pushed it away. Liora deserves grandparents, she said. Liora deserved grandparents when she was in the hospital. My voice stayed calm, but my hands were cold under the table. She deserved them when she had surgery. She deserved them when Brennan died. She deserved them when she learned to ride a bike and asked if you knew. She deserved them before a trust fund made her useful to you. My father looked up. She rides a bike? His voice was so small that for a second I almost felt sorry for him before I remembered that sorrow does not erase absence. Yes, I said. 6 houses down without stopping. He pressed his fingers against his eyes. I saw the first birthday invitation, he said. My mother turned toward him. Orson. It was a warning, but he kept going. You wanted to throw it away. I opened it in the garage. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. There was a picture of her in a yellow sweater, sitting on a blanket. You wrote that she liked peaches. I did not move. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. You saw it. He nodded. I kept a copy. In my toolbox. For years. My mother's face had gone rigid. I did not know that. My father wiped his face with both hands. I know. He looked back at me. I should have called. I should have driven here. I should have done anything except hide a photo like a coward and call it love. For a moment, the room changed. Not healed, not repaired, but cracked open. My father had finally said something true without my mother giving him permission. It was not enough. It could never be enough. But truth, even late truth, has a different sound than performance. I reached into the yellow box one last time and took out the trust summary Etta had prepared for me. I placed it beside my mother's list. This is what Leora's trust is for, I said. Medical care, education, therapy, long-term support, future housing if her health ever requires it, adaptive needs if she has them, protection. I looked at Thayer's business line, the mortgage line, the monthly support line. It is not for failed businesses. It is not for property taxes. It is not for adult children who researched a little girl's money before asking if she still has nightmares before checkups. It is not for guilt. It is not for reputation repair. This money came from her father's love and his death. It is not a family lottery. My mother stood so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. You think money makes you better than us? No, I said. I think money made you remember us. She stared at me, breathing hard. My father stayed seated, shoulders shaking. The cream folder lay open between us. All those clean numbers exposed in the daylight. $447,000 in the first year. A price tag placed on reconciliation. I picked up my mother's list and held it out to her. I will not give you access to Leora's trust. Not $1. Not because I hate you, because love that starts with a withdrawal request is not love. She did not take the paper. I placed it on the table in front of her. If you want to know Liora, truly know her, there's only one way to begin. You write her a letter, not to me, to her. You tell her you were wrong to stay away. You do not mention money. You do not mention the trust. You do not mention what you need. You explain what you failed to give. If that letter is honest, I will read it first. Then maybe, slowly, we start with one short video call. 10 minutes, supervised. No promises after that. My mother's face twisted. You are keeping her from us. No, I said. I am keeping her safe from people who only came when her name became valuable. She looked around the dining room then, at Brennan's photo, at the hospital bracelet, at the bird drawings, at Sable's quilt. I could see her understanding something she did not want to understand. This house was not waiting for her. My daughter's life had not been empty without Maribel Hollis in it. Liora had been loved, protected, celebrated. She had a grandmother figure who knew her medicine schedule and her favorite cake and the way she hummed when she drew. My mother had missed 7 years, and those years had not stayed empty for her to fill later. They had filled with other people's love. Maribel picked up the cream folder with stiff hands. Come on, Orson, she said. My father did not move at first. Then he stood slowly. At the doorway, he stopped near the string of bird drawings. His hand lifted like he wanted to touch one, then dropped. What kind of bird is that? He asked, pointing to a bright yellow one with a black wing. A goldfinch, I said. She learned it from Sable. He nodded. His eyes filled again. Tell her. He stopped. He had no right to ask me to tell Liora anything. He seemed to realize it. No, never mind. Then he followed my mother outside. The door closed quietly. Not a slam. Not a dramatic ending, just a click, a small sound for a large absence. For a while, I stood in the dining room without moving. The yellow box was still open. Papers covered the table. Hospital logs, returned invitations, screenshots, the trust summary, my mother's list, proof of 2 different families, the one that left, and the one Brennan, Sable, Liora, and I had built anyway. Then Sable came from the kitchen doorway. She had been there long enough to hear some of it, not all. She did not ask if I was okay. Retired nurses know better than to ask questions with obvious answers. She just put a hand on my back and said, "You held the line." I nodded. Then I cried into her shoulder. Not because I regretted anything, but because even the right thing can hurt when it closes a door you once prayed would open. Thayer texted that night. "You destroyed Mom." I looked at the message while Liora slept upstairs. For the first time in years, I replied to my brother. "No," I returned her list. Then I blocked him. It felt less like anger and more like cleaning a wound. My mother did not write. She did not call. She did not send an apology to Liora, not that week, not the next. The silence returned, but it was different now. Before, their silence had felt like a locked door I kept knocking on. Now it felt like a fence I had chosen because my daughter deserved a yard without strangers walking in to take what Brennan had planted. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived from my father. No cream stationery, no perfect handwriting, just a plain white envelope, my name written unevenly across the front. I opened it at the kitchen table after Liora went to school. The letter was 1 page. He did not ask for money. He did not ask for a visit. He did not defend my mother. He wrote, "I was a coward before I was a grandfather. I let your mother's pride become the family rule, and I obeyed it because obedience was easier than losing peace at home. But I lost you instead. I saw Leora's first birthday photo. I kept it because I loved the idea of her, but I did not love her bravely enough to show up. I am sorry. If all I ever get is knowing she is safe, that is more mercy than I earned." I read it 3 times. Then I folded it and held it for a long while. I did not put it inside the yellow box. The yellow box was for harm, for proof, for things that needed to be remembered because someone might deny them later. My father's letter was not repair, not yet. But it was not denial either. So I placed it on top of my desk, outside the box, where I could decide what it was with time. That evening, Liora came home from school with a new drawing, a blue bird this time, sitting on a branch with 1 yellow leaf. She taped it to the refrigerator and asked, "Are the faraway grandparents still shy?" I washed my hands at the sink and chose my words carefully. One of them may be learning how to be honest. She thought about that with the serious face she used for puzzles. "Is honest hard?" I smiled a little. For some people, yes." She picked up a crayon from the counter. "If he learns, I can draw him a bird." That was Liora, a heart that had fought so hard to keep beating, still generous enough to offer a bird to someone learning late. I did not promise her anything. Children deserve hope, but not false hope. I kissed the top of her head and said, "Maybe one day." Here is what 7 years taught me. Family is not proven by blood. It is proven by presence. It is the person who sits beside a hospital bed at 3 a.m. and learns the difference between fear and an emergency. It is the aunt who drives through snow with soup and clean socks. It is the father who builds an app because his little girl needs one more safe day. It is the friend who sends screenshots because silence has already done enough damage. Family is not a cream folder filled with demands. It is not a monthly support request. It is not a business investment wrapped in the language of healing. And it is never, ever a child's trust fund. My parents refused to meet my daughter for 7 years. Then they showed up with a list of things they wanted from the money her father left to protect her. They thought the trust made Liora part of the family again. They were wrong. Liora had always been family. She was family when she was 4 pounds and 8 ounces under hospital lights. She was family when her chest was taped and her mother was terrified. She was family when she learned to sit, to walk, to ride a bike, to draw goldfinches from memory. They were the ones who chose not to belong to her. The yellow box is back under my bed now. It is still there. Not because I live in the past, but because the past has paperwork. And some people only respect truth when it comes with dates. Maybe one day my father will earn a short video call. Maybe one day he will see Liora hold up a bird drawing and tell him in her bright little voice that yellow is not just a color, it is a mood. Maybe my mother will never write the letter. Maybe pride will keep her company longer than we ever did. I cannot control that. I can only control the door to my daughter's life. And that door does not open for money. It opens for honesty. It opens for accountability. It opens slowly, carefully, only when the person outside understands that love is not access and a child is not a bank account. If someone in your life came back only after you had something they wanted, tell me in the comments. And if this story reminded you that your child's peace is worth protecting, share it with someone who needs that reminder today.